Yeah, maybe because we got
Ignore the stickers. Megan told us that we could please fit 2 people at the table. During demo time, I don't really care.
Well, at least
we're all gonna be rocking around.
Yeah, we got those.
No, but
Did they tell you what was wrong with it, or did they just wear
Good to go.
Oh, are we on stream? I think we're on stream.
Yo, what's
Awesome.
good, the baby?
Okay.
Are we muted?
Alright, we're good.
No, we're good.
Yeah. Okay. Jason, is it this mic or this computer mic?
Probably.
Okay.
Yo, Evan, come on.
Awesome. Okay. Good to go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 2 of RIT-Sec. Please sign in. Help us keep attendance. Again, this is the usual. Get that membership, sign in, all that good stuff. Know you're here. Know you're watching. Check out our interest groups and programs. They're awesome. Still meeting. Physical. My favorite.
Dude, yes.
Join our workplace if you haven't already at workplace. RIT-Sec.club. You can post all our info there, all our announcements, everything important. Again, join our workplace. Sign up for the newsletter. Get an email. Tells you what's going on, who's presenting, who's doing what. It's great. And check out ISTS, March 6th to 7th. That's the link. It's not a very nice link, but go forth and sign up if you want to sign up for a team. Slots are limited, so first come, first serve, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, teams that are signing up, use that form.
You need a whole team.
Yes, you do need a whole team when you sign up. You can't sign up partially.
I will be adding a second one for individuals. It's very unlikely that you'll get a spot if you sign up as an individual, but I'll leave the option open.
If you didn't,
I know.
If you didn't hear Dan, he's saying there will be an individual sign up, but there's a very low chance that you'll probably get onto a team just because all the slots will be filled up before then. Swag update. In most days in the club room, we have an e-board number there. If you ordered swag, come by, pick it up. If you ordered a hat, you have to pay for it. But other than that, stop by and we'll grab your swag. Unless you don't see, I'm wearing this amazing RIT-Sec hoodie. Gotta plug the merch. Really great, really comfy. IRSec prize update. It's also in the club room. So if you won something at the past IRSec in the fall, go to the club room and there's prizes for you. It's great. Also probably shirts, I think. I'm not sure. Yeah, contact Josh if you need to know more. And B-Sides Rochester. It's a virtual conference for B-Sides. Tickets are available. We have, I know John presenting. And Emmanuel's presenting at B-Sides. Pretty great. Get a ticket if you want. And ice skating. It's Sunday. Enzo's going to come talk about it real quick.
Just quickly. Philip could probably cover the details, but if you don't know, it's all posted on Workplace. I'm coming to talk about the ride sharing thing. If you guys needed a ride, please sign up for that form I posted in Workplace, and then we'll get you guys all situated.
Wait, it's not the one on campus?
No.
It is not the one on campus, but again, it's at 1:30. We're gonna go hang out, ice skate together. Pretty cool. Outside, yeah. Ice skating's fun. I've never done it, but I want to learn. And meet our sponsors. Can we get a round of applause for our sponsors? We love them. They're great.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
This isn't about ISP.
Okay. Dan, take it away.
Spencer, I just ran into him getting a COVID test. He wanted to remind you all that RVAP is meeting at 7 on Thursdays, and they will be running their pen testing mini comp later on. So make sure to show up for that. It's a good time.
So yes, RVAP, the pen testing interest group, is meeting. Follow social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Great posts on there. And without further ado, Advanced Windows by yours truly and Enzo.
Hooray.
So, why does Windows matter? A great start to this presentation. 1, pretty cool. 2, most companies have some Windows-based network or environment. Active Directory is pretty popular. It's pretty great for for authentication and widespread security auditing. And having a good grasp on Windows and Windows Server is pretty marketable. It's quite popular and it's a good skill to have. If you somehow were also, most people probably have experience of Windows, but if you somehow were born and your parents sat you in front of a bash shell and told you to build Arch, it's a good time to learn Windows. It's a very popular OS among non-power users, which is just regular people. And Windows servers is pretty popular. It's pretty good. It has a core version. Knowing PowerShell, pretty important. Yeah, by the way, this is advanced Windows. If you haven't seen the basic Windows presentation, I recommend watching it on YouTube. So let's start off with how Windows is organized. So the basic structure of Windows is from like high level top, it's like a pyramid, to like from a session that contains a Windows station, that contains desktops, that contains a window, that contains a process, that contains a thread. A lot of stuff. We'll go through each and every one of them. So the session, it's kind of like the whole overarching everything. It consists of all the processes and all the objects and user session. It's not a login session. It's different from that. It's just a Windows session, and you can kind of see. I don't know if modern Task Manager shows it, but if you like in command prompt just do task list, you can see which processes and which services belong to which session. And you'll see that session 0 will have like processes like system and the services. That pretty much is just separated from session 1, which would be what session you probably have. Pretty much, session 0 is just where all the system and services stuff is, and it's kept isolated from session 1, which is like the user space and applications, just for security reasons that was introduced in Vista. On Windows stations, there's only one station the user can interact with, that's Winsta 0. All the other ones, as you can see in the top, kind of load services, and like for example, SQL has its own station. It's pretty much like a security object to keep things separated, has its own ACL and everything. Pretty cool. Desktops, these are kind of what you'll probably be familiar with. There's 4 different desktops. There's the WinLogon desktop, which is the login screen. The user desktop, which is like, how you interact with the, operating system. Secure desktop, which is like UAC. So whenever you like try to run something in administrator, and it gives that prompt, that's UAC. And the screensaver desktop. So whenever you go to screensaver, it's actually its own desktop for like security reasons. Other stuff in processes. So processes in Windows, they don't actually do any of the lifting. It just contains mostly just metadata for the threads. And threads are actually just what runs the code, what runs the applications. It's actually the stuff that does things. Some quick notes is, newer version of Windows, such as 10, session 0 is not allowed to communicate with other sessions, unlike before, where you could actually switch to session 0. Not allowed to do that anymore. And also, fun tip, when UAC pops up, it's like a new desktop, it's a different desktop, and it actually just takes a screenshot of your current window, and then dims it a bit. That's pretty much all it does. And authentication.
Alrighty, I'll be talking about authentication, both local and domain. A lot of acronyms, and it's kind of confusing, so if you guys are confused at any point, just ask me to re-explain it. I know it's a lot. Okay, so first off, local auth, held by a process called LSASS, LSAS, whatever. It's a mouthful. Local Security Authority Subsystem Service. Basically, when you log in, it's creating an access token for you. And this access token gives you all the permissions and anything you need to do to have access to services, access files, that sort of thing. So how it verifies and gives you the ticket, or not ticket, token, it goes to the Security Account Manager, or SAM database. That's where your account information is, so receives account information from there. There are 2 types of access tokens. There's the primary, which is granted by that, and there's also impersonation. So impersonation is not necessarily a negative thing. Say you want to do an administrator command prompt or something like that, and you're basically impersonating the administrator since you have privileges. Oops, I'm on the wrong computer. Okay, so if you're on a domain, it doesn't use that. It uses Kerberos, which is like the whole domain authentication. Big thing. It's been around for a while, implemented in Windows 2000 and beyond. It's in its 5th version currently. So this is where all the acronyms come in. Forgive me here. So I'm sort of just going to give you a basic rundown. So you are a client, and what you do is you send a request for a ticket granting ticket to a key distribution center. Just follow along. Bear with me here. So the KDC will create a ticket granting ticket for the client, and encrypt it using the client's password. So now this ticket is encrypted with the client's password. So if the client enters the correct password, they're able to decrypt the ticket granting ticket. If they enter in the wrong credentials or anything like that, obviously you can't decrypt, and the TGT is encrypted, you can't use it. So this TGT is sort of like a proof of who you say you are. It's valid for, I think the default is 20 minutes, and then you have to request another one. Once you have this TGT that verifies who you are, you can request access to like other services or things you want permission to. So we go down here. So say you want to access like a web server or something like that. So you send your TGT to a TGS, which is a ticket granting service. So this is a ticket that grants you access to the service that you want with the name of the service. And once it verifies that, okay, yes, this person has a valid TGT, that's all good. It will return a session key to you, which you can use to access the service. Very confusing. Anyone want me to re-explain one more time? Good? Well, you can ask me at the end if you want to. Okay, so here's a little diagram just to sort of help you visualize again. So right here, you're requesting the TGT from the main controller. It's giving you back the valid TGT. You do your whole, you do your whole decryption thing with the valid credentials, and you finally have your, yes, thank you, Philip. And then you can request the whole TGS stuff after that. Okay, so there's some important sort of attacks that are worth considering here. Yes, everyone admired John. So these are two important things worth noting. So there's golden tickets and silver tickets. So this is where you forge a ticket using some program like Mimikatz or any other thing as a sort of bypass type thing. Golden tickets are harder to get because they're a bit more powerful. You need a bunch of requirements. And I have some diagrams on the next slide as well. So you're forging this, and you are forging a TGT. So you never have to request, pass credentials, that sort of thing. You're just skipping that whole step. But it does require a bunch of these things. You need domain name, SID, and then this account, KRB, TGT, NTLM hash, which is kind of hard to find, and user ID. And if like I said earlier, if the ticket is invalid after 20 minutes, then it's no go there. Silver ticket. So this is for you're forging a TGS instead. So you're just bypassing the whole KDC step, but you only have access to the service that you want to have access to.
So as a brief, quick rundown, the golden ticket is just giving you a TGT, which just makes you allows you to say, I can be whoever I want. It's like you forge a ticket as like administrator. Oh, I have now the granting ticket for administrator, and the domain controller is now going to give me any key I want. Pretty much like that. The silver ticket instead is just like the second part of it, which is for the service. So you miss you still have to do. I don't know if you do a TGT, but you forge the service ticket, so pretty much you can access the service you want without having to go to the domain controller at all. Yeah. And while it's more like sequestered, it's much easier to get.
Yep, exactly. Thanks, Philip. And just a quick rundown on kerberosing. Yes. If you want to see a full talk on kerberosing, shout out to Noah Troy. He did one, and then I think Troy did one as well. So it's on our YouTube. So in order to do kerberosing, you must have a domain account with a valid TGT. So it doesn't have to be an admin, just like an account on the domain where you can get a valid TGT. So what you do is you enumerate accounts on the system that are running services. So say you want a specific service, you request a TGS for it that you don't have access to, and then it puts it into memory, and then you can extract it with a tool, a post-exploit tool like Mimikatz, and then crack the hash if you want to do something like that. Like I said, very basic, but go to Noah Troy's talk on YouTube for a full rundown.
Windows services. So in the basic Windows, we went over kind of how you like access and interact with services. here we're gonna go over kind of how they function almost. All the services are managed by like the server control manager. Service accounts run those services, so like actual like they have their own accounts to run them. Trusted installer, local system, all that stuff. That's what runs those services and used to actually do Windows functions. They're managed with the SC command line tool, so SC is pretty powerful. You know multiple things with it. You can just list all the services. You can edit all the permissions, edit their ACLs, make it so that only one user can see a service. So a certain user can't stop a service or something like that. You might see SVC host on your box, like 7 of them. Don't panic. SVC host is just a way to conserve or combine multiple services to be less resource intensive for Windows. And pretty much that's how they function. Drivers, they're usually just code in kernel land. They get a lot more information, and sometimes you need to be in kernel space to actually do the stuff you want. Kernel space is always a little difficult to code for, and therefore, if you only really want to go into kernel space and you need that information or you need to do what you want to do, you might actually see it as like a service. So when you do SC query all, you actually see drivers being listed in that. So they're kind of similar to services, but they're in kernel land and they're much more powerful, but harder to interact with. There's a lot of security implications when you actually write a driver or do stuff with drivers. For example, like VirtualBox driver, I think some years ago, that you exploit that let you bypass Windows signing for drivers. So like using that, you can just install any driver you want, which obviously is pretty bad, maliciously.
Yeah. So Windows offers a lot of beautiful different languages, very diverse to accomplish your tasks. So there's a lot of good ones. PowerShell, Batch is for CMD. C# holds a special place in my heart, even if it is a little hated sometimes. There's Visual Basic and Visual Basic Script, and of course C and C++ are very powerful ones. There's a lot of pros and cons, which we're going to go into. Some are easier, some are more difficult, but more powerful. So .NET Framework. So this is a collection of APIs, libraries, that sort of thing that can be interfaced with. This is what PowerShell and C# use. It's usually pretty easy to understand and work. The problem is you can't really get down to that very low level if you want to do certain things and exploit things or do whatever. But it's very easy to use, which is a giant pro for these two languages. So if you see here, creating a process in C# are pretty easy. 5 lines. Just create a new process object. You're not using a shell since you're just spawning or you're running an executable file. Give it the file name, create no window or create window if you want hidden, and then process.start. Simple, easy as that for C#.
Now the Win API, a bit more low level, a bit more difficult, but it gives you a lot more information probably than .NET MPA .NET language. Pretty much, you usually use C or C++ to access it. It's a bit more lightweight, but a bit more difficult. As you can see here, creating a process in the WinAPI is a lot more difficult, as this is just the function call. That's all the arguments you need for the function call, and some of these arguments are really annoying to make. Some of these structures, like security attributes and stuff like that, that's 25-40 lines of code just to make a process compared to the 5. Yeah, John? Yeah, like John said, half of them probably don't even matter, and so you really have to read documentation. We have to know what you're doing, and it's still a bit more difficult and a lot more lines of code, but it lets you do a lot more stuff. The native API is even more low level. It's kind of spooky, but not really. Some people call it hidden or secret, and that's just because Microsoft doesn't really have any documentation on it. They don't really want you using it. Not for they don't want you using it for because it's bad or malicious or insecure. It's just that they claim that they changed a lot. It's not really meant for mainline use or anything, and that something you make today might not be supported tomorrow. But you get a lot more information. It's a lot more low level, but also a lot more difficult. For example, in WinAPI, function get that information. These are the only 2 things you might get, which is memory priority and power throttling. As a developer, maybe you might want that, but as a security person trying to exploit something, not really useful. Now for the native API, this function, same function, you can pretty much ask for anything in pretty much when you call for the in-thread focus class pretty much here. Cursor, you there. Pretty much you can pass any struct into it about a thread, and you can get it from it, which is a lot more information, a lot more stuff that you might be able to use, but a lot more difficult to use, and also not documented as well. WMI, Windows Management Instrumentation, really fun, kinda. Not a lot of people know about it, but it's kind of a server management tool. It's kind of old, but also like it's like a SQL queries pretty much, and you can get a lot of information from it and also do a lot of stuff. For example, you can make processes or create malware pretty much. I'll show you how to do that in a sec. But from a security perspective, you can make things such as like WMI events, which pretty much you give it three things, which is a filter, a consumer, and something like a filter, consumer, bind, which like binds them together. Filter just is a filter like, hey, when this thing happens, do the thing. Consumer is the thing you do, and then you filter consumer. Let's put that together. Pretty simple. Well, not really, but when you see this example, it looks simple. Pretty much, as you can see here, you have the filter that you set an instance to where if someone logs on. So this pretty much will trigger whenever a user logs on. Then you have the consumer, which is just a PowerShell command. So every time someone logs on, it just creates a text file. But this could be whatever you want. It could start a process. It could, run your malware or whatever whenever someone logs on. And this can all be changed. You could make it so whenever a process dies, you just rerun the process. And these run as system, which is pretty powerful. And, probably don't want those. There's multiple ways to catch them. Auto-runs catches them. You can query for all the filters, consumers, pretty much in the bindings. And this binding just puts it all together. So whenever, the filter occurs, the consumer happens. Pretty powerful because it runs a system. It's pretty dangerous, and you don't want that. So, wrapping it up, kind of this last slide, security pretty much. UAC added in Vista. You pretty much have to make sure you have the right creds. Windows Resource Protection, pretty much just trust installer. Make sure you can't delete important files, pretty much. And kernel protection such as patch code, which pretty much is like, okay, these are protected structures in the kernel. If they get changed, I'm going to back them up pretty much. Any questions? It's a great picture. Thank you very much. Yes. Okay.
Any question? Twitch chat?
Yes?
How do I get Linux on this?
It's like, oh, you really, no.
Install the Windows subsystem.
Yeah, Windows subsystem for
WSL.
Linux, like really. If that's it, then I'll have a quick presentation. Demo time. Yes, do the demo. Some sick prizes coming. Well, prizes for top spots.
Yeah, so that's the link to the VM. It's about 9 gigabytes.